One of, I think, the coolest facts that people probably don't realize is that over 90% of serotonin is actually produced in our gut. So serotonin is the chemicals that make us feel good, that make us happy, that help, prevent depression. So that's all made in our gut. So if we don't have enough bacteria in our gut, or if we have too many bad bacteria, that's really preventing our body from being able to make these chemicals that are important for our everyday functioning.
Hey everyone, you're now listening to Cup of Queens with Paige and Saray, and we're so excited to be interviewing Danielle, the owner of PharmD Integrative Health. Danielle is passionate about health foundations and helping people achieve their health and medicine goals.
Danielle describes how many drugs are prescribed in a one-size-fits-all manner, disregarding the genetic makeup of each individual. Because of this, Danielle provides tests that will reveal different results to form a plan for her patient's health and wellness journey.
So grab your cup and enjoy.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I know I met Saray, so.
You met half of the crew already.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks here now. I know. Paige was asking me, she's like, okay, so how did you guys meet? And I was like, we met at this event, and everything Danielle was explaining to me sounded so cool. So I'm so excited that, because I was trying to explain it to her. I'm like, it's so over my head. It's so over my head. I won't be able to do it justice. So I'm so excited for you to be able to share with us everything.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's super cool. So I'm very excited to share it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll jump right in.
Yes.
Okay. So I am a pharmacist, and I've been a pharmacist for about 12 years, doing retail pharmacy. But in that time, I've become very interested in like holistic health, natural medicine, functional medicine, which kind of really is a just canopy of all of those things together. And so really dove into how I could use those tools to help people versus just being in the pharmacy and dispensing drugs. So I found a couple of online courses that I've done. So I've become a holistic health practitioner, and I do have a certificate for that, but really focusing on functional medicine. And with that, focusing on gut health and really how that ties into honestly everything. So gut health is so important for everything that we do. And I think when I talked to Saray, we were talking about nutrigenomics, I think was kind of one of the big things that I talked about. So you can actually do a DNA test and evaluate how well your body processes different nutrients, so different vitamins. It can look at how you process like things like CBD. It looks at how you process caffeine. So you can evaluate all of these things and how well your body would process them based off of the genes and the variations that you have in the body. So that's where my focus has dove into, is like, how can I help people look at all these things that we don't know about, like without really knowing about them, you don't know about them. And how can that ultimately benefit people in ways that they're not finding benefits from what they're doing already.
I think that is so fascinating, because I look at like caffeine and CBD and all these things that you just mentioned as kind of a one size fits all. Like a cup of coffee is a cup of coffee, but it's not the case. Like it's different for everybody.
Right. Yep. So because there's certain enzymes that actually process caffeine in the body. So for like myself, I believe, if I remember correctly, I was like a slower caffeine metabolizer. So like if I drink a cup of coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like I'm still going to have caffeine in me probably past midnight. Whereas like if someone's a fast metabolizer, they probably could drink it at 4 o'clock and it will be out of their system entirely before they would ever go to bed. So it wouldn't play a factor in whether or not it was keeping them awake. So yeah, we truly can all process metabolism, or like process caffeine differently. Which can obviously affect some people. Like if they, you've probably had someone who said, oh, if I drink coffee past, 3 o'clock, I can't sleep. Well, that's probably true because the caffeine is still working out of their system. So it really is, playing a factor in how well they are or aren't sleeping.
Mm-hmm. So how do people take this test? And then once they do take it, what do you see people implementing into their own life as far as like what kind of changes and different lifestyle things?
Yeah, so it's a pretty simple test. It's like a cotton swab that you just rub inside of the cheek. Usually rub in both sides of the cheek for like 15 to 30 seconds, put it in a little tube and then send it off to the lab. So I obviously don't do any of the testing. There is a lab that specifically does that testing. But the nice thing is with it being a cheek swab, it's not invasive. It doesn't require blood. It doesn't require, the things that people are like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it just gets the DNA cells out of the cheeks. You send it in, and they send back the results that essentially would show, like, it'll show the genes, which is probably for a lot of people, that's not going to make a lot of sense, but it shows the genes and it shows like, the variations in the gene. So there's so many different ways of looking at that, but it might show like these letters might be a normal for that gene. So you might be normal, or these letters are going to be like a super metabolizer or a slow metabolizer. And then just looking at that information is how you would recommend maybe for someone to make a change. So there's actually a really big one that a lot of people may or may not be aware of, because it plays so many different factors with the MTFHR gene. It determines how you methylate vitamins, so like folic acid and B vitamins. So essentially it makes the vitamins active once they're in the body. But if someone has a gene that's deficient, that gene is deficient, they're never going to metabolize those vitamins. So really they would be taking a vitamin that might potentially be doing them no good. So that would be a great way, especially I had a friend who did that because of her third pregnancy. She had trouble getting pregnant for the first two. The third one, she got pregnant. And when she had the baby, her doctor's like, oh, this is really weird. It looks like there's like a dimple in the baby's like lower back. And they're like, we want to test to make sure that the neural tube is fully formed. She's like, well, why wouldn't it be? She took folic acid through her whole pregnancy, all those things. Well, here she has that gene that's not active. So folic acid wasn't really doing her any good.
Wow.
So by taking a different form of folic acid that's already active, she would have absorbed more of it. So then it would have, and her baby was totally fine. But like without knowing that and without having that concern, like if she would have taken a different form of folic acid, like she would have absorbed a lot more. So it would have been more beneficial for her.
That is
Dang.
wild.
That's crazy.
Like the thought of how many vitamins and different things that I buy because you're marketed and influenced to take this, you need more of this, you need magnesium, you need B vitamins, whatever it might be. And here we might not even be benefiting from them, depending on our DNA.
Right. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That makes me want to take this test right now because I'm okay, like what's working, what's not.
What am I wasting my money on too?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you also mentioned gut health and how that is super important in anything that you're taking. So talk to us more on that.
So one of, I think, the coolest facts that people probably don't realize is that over 90% of serotonin is actually produced in our gut. So serotonin is the chemicals that make us feel good, that make us happy, that help, prevent depression. So that's all made in our gut, 90% of it, which is a huge portion of it. So if we don't have enough bacteria in our gut, or if we have too many bad bacteria, that's really preventing our body from being able to make these chemicals that are important for our everyday functioning. So in a lot of studies, there's certain cultures where they do very much plant-based diets, and they have over 400 different types of microbes in their gut, which helps with your immune system. It helps with, like I said, serotonin, so your mood. It helps with how you metabolize things, because if your body's not doing any of the things it should be because we're not being able to process and digest all our food, it's going to prevent what we're actually absorbing. And then there's cultures, probably like a lot of us, myself included, who we probably have like less than 100 different types of bacteria in our gut. So it definitely changes how well we absorb food. There's so many people that have acid reflux because they're probably not having enough diverse bacteria to really digest all the food that they are consuming. So,
wow. So, okay, thinking about this, how can people get more bacteria in their diet? Like, what are different foods or drinks? I don't know, all the things.
Yeah, for sure.
I think of kombucha. That's
yes.
like the one thing I think of like a probiotic. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. So kombucha is a great one. Fruits and vegetables. Honestly, like fruits and vegetables, what they say about eating the rainbow or having like 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is where it comes from, because all of those microbes are in those vegetables and in those fruits. So when we consume that, it makes the bacteria in our gut very diverse. Probiotics is also another good way to do it. The biggest thing with probiotics, like with any of the vitamins, we do want to make sure that we're trying to find a really good quality supplement. So finding a probiotic that has research on it, which is very hard to do. If you just go to the grocery store shelf, you would have no idea, if it does or doesn't. And it's not very easy to see those things. But so finding good quality probiotics, spore-based probiotics, which sounds funny, but they would say right on the bottle if they are. In some of the studies that have been done, the spores actually help the bacteria really get into the gut so that they actually can be absorbed the way they're supposed to be and actually be effective to help digest food.
Dang.
That's cool.
The more you know,
The
because
more you
I'm like you. It's like kombucha,
Yeah.
sauerkraut. I don't know.
And those things are absolutely important also. They do help really create that array of bacteria in there. So they're very important things, but the fruits and vegetables are really a lot of where it comes from as well.
Yeah.
So cool.
So obviously you have this just incredible knowledge and viewpoint on holistic health. So tell us what does it look like, working from start to finish, and maybe there isn't a finish with the clients that you work with. Tell us what that process might look like.
Yeah, so usually I would want to start with just kind of a discovery call is what I would call it. 15 minutes chit-chatting to see what they're looking for and, to see how that relationship would look if it's something that I can provide for them. One of the things with like holistic health and functional medicine is it's very much self-driven.
Mhm.
Like if you don't want to do the work, you're probably not going to get the results. Like, it's hard but true. And like I struggle with that too. Like as a human being, I totally understand. Like it's a struggle. But just making sure that relationship looks like it's gonna be something where it would kind of benefit both of us. Like we want to be able to have those meetings. So typically I would say about 4 months is a good like average course time because it allows us to do any testing if the client wants to. We don't have to. You could just look at symptoms and what they're eating and start making diet adjustments that way. And that's going to be a really great place to start for people too. So if someone doesn't want to have to pay for testing or doesn't want to go through the testing, totally fine. We don't have to do that. But then usually be, probably couple every 2 weeks or monthly calls to talk about what changes have been made, how things are going. There's some other very basic testing that can be done if it's in person. Primarily I focus on doing virtual. So it's harder to do the testing, but there's pH strips, which is like you probably used in science class. You can like spit on them. It'll change color and tell you what your body pH is. And there's supplements that you can actually use based off of just that can start to help regulate the system to kind of bring things back into like a normal range. So it's some things that can be very simple. And then just following up at, like I said, every 2 weeks, every month to see where people are and working through those changes and kind of making essentially good lifestyle changes. And if necessary, supplementing based off of any kind of testing that would be done. And then at that point, after 4 months, it's really kind of a call on the partnership, how things are going, how much change has been made, how much more change wants to be made, and that kind of thing from there. So,
So cool.
What has been one of your favorite success stories? I feel like
so I have a close friend who has these symptoms that no one's figured out. The doctor keeps telling him, I don't know, like literally to the point of having like 3 sinus surgeries and still has the symptoms, like still constantly has like a lot of mucus and a lot of really annoying when he eats and all these things. And I said, you need to do a food sensitivities test. Like I've been telling him constantly, like you need to do this test. So we finally did it and got there and it showed kind of what I thought, but got the result back. And of course, like off the charts sensitive to gluten. So it wasn't causing like maybe a lot of symptoms that someone would think are typical of a gluten sensitivity, but it was like just constant like nasal mucus, like all this drainage. And I'm like, it's because of food. Something you're eating is not agreeing with your system. And so he made just a few changes right away because he's like, well, can I just take a pill? And I said, no, like you have to change what you're doing to change it. And after just a few days, he's like, oh my gosh, I can already tell the difference. Like I'm already not struggling with this issue every time I try to eat or every time I try to just like watch TV. So that's been super fun.
That is wild. Do you have like other common food sensitivities because I would have never thought of sinuses with gluten. Like you hear like stomach problems or those symptoms with gluten. So are there other kind of symptoms that are connected with food sensitivities that maybe people don't think of?
Yeah, it's crazy. So there can be a lot of things. So honestly, like skin rashes, dermatitis, eczema can all be like not necessarily 100%, but they can be as a result of a food sensitivity.
Mhm.
In this case, it was, like I said, sinus drainage, a lot of mucus and stuff like that. So symptoms that are probably totally not correlated at all. You just think, oh, I've got allergies, right? I've just got an allergy to something that's out in the environment. But really, it's something that he's consuming every single day that's just causing the body to just flare up enough to be irritating. So it's not like, it's maybe not debilitating in that sense, but it's very much interfering with daily activity. So any symptoms like that that are just even normal symptoms for people can be correlated to food sensitivities.
That's wild.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that he got that figured out, because that seriously would be such a not a great thing to deal with.
Such a burden.
Right.
Daily. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
to the point where I don't even care to eat dinner, because if I do, I'm just going to be, like not feel good afterwards, but not necessarily being able to correlate it to one specific thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a way that people can even at home try to, I shouldn't even say self-diagnose, because that's totally eliminating what you do, but like, I mean, how do people know if they get stomach aches all the time? Is it just their body? Is it truly something's not agreeing with them? Different things like that. Like basically what I'm wondering is, when do people need to take that next step and maybe go get some help or another second opinion?
Mhm.
Sure. So I actually can't diagnose, so I don't do that. But no, I would, it's like the only thing you can do at home is to start eliminating foods. So gluten, dairy, sugar, I mean, anything processed, eliminating all of those things and really getting it down to like meats and potatoes, but like vegetables, like the very basics, and then slowly start bringing things back into the diet is going to be the only probably true way of knowing if it's caused by a food. So in this case, with him, we just went straight to a test because it was a faster way of deciding which food should be eliminated. So like that's obviously an option, but if someone maybe doesn't want to or can't afford to, the easiest way to figure it out at home is really to bring the diet down to nothing, and then for like a month, and then slowly start to add back in things. And if you've added in, say, dairy, and you start having all the symptoms, then you know that that's the cause of it. So you could stop eating that and bring something else in and just kind of see how it goes. But that's really the only guaranteed way of knowing. Because even with his allergy, I said, I mean, you're going to know by eliminating gluten to see if your symptoms truly go away. And if they do, then that's for sure the cause. Like it's a high likelihood because of the way the test results came back. But the only guarantee is to actually eliminate and then see how things go.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally.
So going back to the DNA testing, because you mentioned how some people hold DNA that doesn't allow them to absorb certain nutrients, certain vitamins, whatever it might be. And that's applicable then to, I would assume, food then, correct? Not just like substitute vitamins.
So you wouldn't really be able to DNA test for food specifically. You can find the sensitivities, like I said, with the food sensitivity test that might tell you, and essentially what that's going to tell you is what your immune system is like ramping up to, like what things your immune system's like, oh, this is a bad guy, I'm gonna like try to fight it. But there's really no like DNA that's going to specifically affect your food sensitivities.
Got it.
And so I haven't done anything in my specific experience, but in my like learning and all the education that I've done, there's some people that have been able to eliminate the food that causes the sensitivity, take it out of the system for a month, whatever, do some gut healing, just with herbs and things that can kind of soothe the gut system, make sure that there's good enzymes in there, good acid production. And then they've been able to actually incorporate those foods back in, and they've been able to eat them and not have any issues.
Wow. So just like kind of a cleanse.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And kind of letting the immune system calm back down so that it's not like on high alert all the time and thinking, oh, I can't have all of these things. And then once it's able to kind of calm back down and reset, they can be. And obviously there's no guarantees, but people have been able to reintroduce the foods that have actually caused sensitivities.
That's actually so comforting to hear. I feel like for people who get those food sensitivity tests and you're like, no, like this is the last thing I want to eliminate from my diet.
Right.
I mean, it's nice to know that, okay, maybe there is opportunity to try it down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like no guarantees with anything. I think gluten's a tough one, just because it's in so many things. So it's hard to eliminate.
Yeah.
But I also don't know that a lot of people have a ton of success introducing it back in just because of the nature of what it is, of the actual molecule that the body's trying to process. So
So interesting.
So what is like a good time frame if you were to do a cleanse then? Would you say a couple weeks, a couple months? I mean, what is
I would say at least 2 weeks. I think a month is kind of a safer time frame just to really be sure that the system has had a chance to reset. And I think also a month is a good time frame because it's so hard to truly eliminate, like to find all of the things. Like if you read ingredients on things, if you're not going down to just like your fruits, vegetables, and basic meats, there's a lot of things in other food and other packaged food, especially that we don't realize is even there. So to really make sure you've eliminated all of the things that could potentially be contaminating your system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you hear so many different health tips and tricks and do that, do this, that it can get really confusing and hard to know which route and which advice you should take. So what is a big misconception within your industry that you frequently hear and have to kind of educate your clients on?
Oh, well, there's a couple of them as a pharmacist that we want to put everybody on drugs, which is not at all the case. I would say 90% of the pharmacists that I'm friends with that we have very good relationships, like ultimately we would love to see people get off of their prescriptions because there are some negatives that come with a lot of medications. So that's the biggest one. The other biggest one is I would say that like if you think about holistic health or functional medicine, that it's like a lot of woo woo and there's no like evidence behind it, but really there is. It's just not mainstream media at this point. Like it's still kind of, you really have to dig for it and find the information. It's not just going to be presented in front of you. Like these things are not talked about on the news. That doesn't mean they don't exist. There's a lot of studies, like there's a database that's a very reliable database from the National Institutes of Health that publishes studies. And these studies are actually found in that database. So it's not like they're made up things that don't actually exist. They're there. It's just that we are not shown them on a daily basis like we are a lot of other things that show up in the news and on the TV and in the media. So
yeah,
it's so crazy because truly everyone believes what's on the media, but it's also like, but what about what's not on the media?
right.
Like it's like reverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot more out there that we're not hearing about that potentially could be beneficial. And even with my friend and his food allergies, he said he asked the doctor about it and they're like, no, that's not going to tell us anything.
And he clearly saw success with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, there's still a lot of like, I think hesitation in our Western medical system of the evidence behind that. Like it's there. You just have to find it and you have to kind of really dig to find it, which is unfortunate.
Wow.
Yeah. So then what are in turn some of your favorite health and wellness practices, different tips and tricks, if you will?
So I was on a retreat a few weeks ago and we had a lot of smoothies and smoothie bowls. And I was like, I'm never going to fill up on these things. This is ridiculous. Like I'm going to be starving all day, every day. But honestly, I never had an issue with being hungry, having smoothies.
Wow.
And it incorporates so many different plant-based things into one meal that you don't even think about. Like I maybe had a smoothie that was like based off of strawberries, but then when you throw in you could throw in like powders of beet, which is a great source of nitric oxide for people. So beet powders can be thrown in there. You'll never taste it, right? You don't know that it's in there. You could throw avocado, kale, spinach, and if you mix them right, like yeah, you can do them wrong too. The first day I did, I was like, oh, this is not good. But if you find some good smoothie recipes, you can easily fit in 5 or 6 fruits and vegetables into one meal. And if I'm sitting down to cook something, I'm going to cook a meat and maybe a vegetable. So I've only gotten one vegetable in that meal. Whereas if I had a smoothie, I had 5. So that's actually been super fun for me to explore and like really get in fruits and vegetables without having to try very hard. And then really it's just like, not even related to that, but like I love sauna for detoxification, red light therapy, which isn't very easy to find, but there are some ways to do it. So those are just cool things that are relaxing, they're healing to the body, and they're, like I said, not maybe easy to find, but if you can find the right places to go for them or find like a membership, they can be really helpful for the body. So
totally.
Okay, I have 2 things. I love both of those things that you just mentioned. One, smoothies. I used to have smoothies all the time and I just like, I think I got bored of them, but
yeah,
I can't remember the brand's name, but it's a subscription service and they have packaged. Do you know which one I'm talking about? They have packaged smoothies. Is something like that a good route, or is it better to just get your own ingredients?
So I definitely know what you're talking about, and I can't think of what it's called either at the moment. But I think, I mean, it definitely can be a good route. I think the biggest trick is like I'm a big like we try to buy as much organic as we can.
Mm,
It's obviously not always easy, especially in the wintertime, because we have very limited resources here in the winter. Um, but also price is a factor. So totally something that's not feasible for everybody.
mhm.
Um, so I think without having dove into those products to see like how they do source their produce, it could be a great place to go. And honestly, I mean, even if it's not organic, if you're not consuming much for fruits and vegetables and you're doing that and consuming them, it's still going to be more beneficial than if you don't at all. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's really nothing wrong with that. If it's an easy way, especially with everyone being busy and go, 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 it's an easy way to get those things into your daily routine. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Definitely it's more beneficial to include them than to not improve your intake of those things because you can't find organic or you can't quite afford it or whatever the situation may be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always get ads for it. And so when you said smoothies, I was like, okay, maybe this is my sign that I need to
That's
buy
so cool. I've
this.
never heard of that. That's
Oh,
awesome.
we'll link it. And
Yeah.
also you'll need to send us some of your smoothie recipes so
Yeah.
that we can use some of those. My other question is sauna, because like you mentioned, unless you have a membership or something,
Mm.
that's a tough one. I
Mhm.
also have been served a lot of ads for this. It's like a sauna, like what's it, sleeping bag. Like you literally lay
Mhm.
in it and it like causes you to just sweat out for, I don't
Yes.
know, like
That's so cool.
30 minutes or
Huh.
whatever it is. Have you heard of these?
Yes, yep, I've seen it. I've seen the ads for them. I haven't seen one in person necessarily, but it's still a great option because ultimately what sauna's doing is, especially for people who maybe can't work out or whatever the situation may be, but it's increasing the body temperature, so it's causing you to sweat. I mean, that's ultimately what you want is to be able to sweat because that's where we're starting to eliminate toxins through our skin, which is a huge detoxification system in the body, right?
Hmm.
So regardless of if it's in a traditional sauna or if it's in a sauna blanket, it's just raising that temperature to get the sweating going. And that's fabulous because it's beneficial to the body to help with detoxification.
Hmm.
Nothing
I
sounds better than a sauna blanket on like a day like today.
literally,
Right?
when it's freezing in Fargo, you're cold. I know, but I also do like hot yoga. I feel like that's a really good
Yeah.
thing too. It's
Yeah.
I know it's really hot, but also you're moving, and I don't know. That could be something.
Yeah.
Sweat it out.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because you're still sweating. And obviously, doing yoga is getting you active and stretching and all the things. So, I mean, that's a fantastic choice. I struggle with yoga because I feel like I'm not good at it, which is probably, partially mindset. But so I love being able to just sit in the sauna. And honestly, I usually meditate or just like breathe when I'm in there, like just do several deep breathing exercises. So it's a great stress reliever and way to relax also. So that's kind of why I do prefer sauna, but I
Yeah.
get that it's not feasible, for everybody. And there's really not a ton of places in town that you can go to just use the sauna. So,
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool though.
Do you have any favorite meditation apps or different like practices that you like for that?
um, so I do iFit, which is kind of like Peloton, but
Okay.
for other machines. And they have quite a few meditations on there. So it's not a free app, which is a bummer. And if someone's not a member, it's probably not worth it just for that. But that's what I do. But honestly, anymore, um, I do a lot of the same ones. So I just do nothing and do it in my head.
Good for
If that makes sense. Like
you.
I just sit and go like I'll just go through a breathing routine in my head and don't have anything else going on. Like I don't play anything. I just am counting and because the counting in and of itself is somewhat meditative because you're just focusing on one thing. So
Wow.
that's what I will do is I will just count as I go through my breathing and that's kind of my way of meditating without having to really have an app or to pay for anything. So yeah, that's just what I've gotten used to. And I'm sure, honestly, I feel like if people just YouTube, like meditations, they would be able to find some without an issue. That at least would be a good starting point to get them going onto a good routine or a good method of doing it.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's cool.
Okay, I'm stuck on the sauna thing because I'm thinking about like meditating and the sauna. How long do you try to sauna for? Because I hate sitting in a sauna. Like, actually, nothing sounds worse than doing that. And I know that's maybe a hot take. I think a lot of people would disagree. But what is like that good threshold time that you should be sitting in there?
So usually about 20 minutes.
No, can't do it.
That's honestly a lot of why I meditate, because it makes the time go by faster.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of presentations, like on whatever I'm currently learning about. I will listen to those while I'm in there too. So it gives me something to focus on. But even that can be hard, because if you're watching the clock, that 20 minutes is like so slow.
But it
So the
makes
meditation I have found is the most helpful to make the time go by faster.
Interesting.
Oh, all right.
We should give it another shot.
I'm gonna give it a shot. Really am. Now that you're saying this, I'm like, it makes sense. I figured it was gonna be like, because you work out for 20 minutes, you think
Right.
of something like that, like it adds up, but I was hoping it would be less.
I get that. And like, so we actually do have a sauna at home. So I'm kind of special that I get to do that without having to think about it. But so if I don't turn it on to preheat it, so if I get in there when it's kind of on the colder end of the spectrum, I will try to sit in there for longer. And then it's really hard, because I'm like, okay, when's it going to be hot? When's it going to be hot? So also getting in a good temperature, like you want it to be like, we have a traditional sauna, so it needs to be like 180 degrees to get in there and start sweating in a relatively quick time. Because otherwise I won't start sweating for a while. And then it's like, okay, how long is it going to take before I start to sweat and actually feel like I've gotten my time, in here, use the most of it. So
totally. Gosh, that's wild.
Well, now we know. Now we're gonna put it on our list to try, because
gotta sweat it out.
Gotta sweat it out.
Mix it up, though. I mean, you could definitely mix it up. It's all beneficial, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure. Well, so we always ask our people that we interview this, obviously being Cup of Queens. So what does a queen mean to you?
Oh, so I was thinking about this. And honestly, I would just say, like, owning you. Like, just being you and owning it. And if you can contribute to others and help others in a way that's beneficial, like, that is such a huge factor also, in kind of being that queen. But really just being you and being true is, to me, the biggest way of describing what I would consider as being a queen.
I love that.
Yes, gotta do
great.
you.
Yep.
No one else can do you, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's something so simple to forget that it's so important to be yourself.
Totally.
Right.
Well, I know everyone listening is going to be so in love with every little tidbit that you were able to tell us today about health and wellness and the different services that you offer between testing and just getting to know your body better. Mm-hmm. So plug away. Tell us what you have coming up. Tell us where people can find you and connect.
For sure. So I do have Instagram and Facebook under my business. So PharmD Integrative Health is the name of my business, and that's what my Facebook page and Instagram are under. I have a website under the same name, so PharmDIntegrativeHealth.com. It's a mouthful. I did not plan that well when I was picking it, but here we are. I can be definitely reached by email, which is just Danielle, so DANIELLE at PharmDIntegrativeHealth.com. And I've definitely reached out on Instagram, Facebook too. Messaging on there is definitely something that can be done as well. I'm actually doing a workshop on Saturday, so I don't know when we'll be live here with when the podcast will be live, but at Prosperity Health Pharmacy, I will be doing a workshop on nutrient deficiency. So the different things that can contribute to nutrient deficiency, so including the nutrigenomics, gut microbiome, medication-induced deficiencies as well. So that will be on Saturday. And beyond that, I don't have anything set in my schedule, but I plan to have some online workshops kind of covering the same thing. So it's more flexible for people who maybe can't come in person, but would be interested in learning about how maybe those things could be affecting them and ways that they can work on that.
That's awesome. So cool. Well, we'll link everything, so it's super easy for people to find you and connect with you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so
much.